Hello and welcome back to the Great Men Do Exist video series. Today I'm here with Ken Solin. Ken, hi. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Ken is the author of Your Guy Is Out There, and he is also a date coach. And he specializes in date coaching for women over 50. Awesome. So I'd love to just jump in and ask some questions if that's all right with you, Ken.
Please do.
Awesome. So how important is mindset in dating? And what kind of mindset shifts have you seen in your successful clients? What, had to happen there for them to make a huge shift and meet their guy?
That's a good question. And I think I wrote a chapter called Are You Ready to Date? And I think being ready to date isn't a decision you make, oh, well, I'm ready to date. You have to be in an emotional space to date. If you're still kind of heartbroken or getting over a relationship from a heartbreak point of view, if you just got divorced or whatever it is, take the time to heal yourself before you get involved in dating, because you won't be doing yourself or your dates any favors. And I think when I dated online, I met a couple of women over the years, and just a few, and I think there's a lot more men like this actually, who were really angry with men because of their ex-husbands. And so they'd go on these rants about their ex-husband. And all I could think was, where's the exit here? I got to get out of here. And eventually I said, look, you're a real nice woman. I'm sure you're going to be very successful, but not with me.
Yeah. Dates are supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah. And people don't, guys always break up and think, well, the way to heal myself is just get into another relationship. Wrong. That's not how you do it. Nobody can heal you. It's not some woman's responsibility to be your therapist. So I think it's really important that people put themselves in a place where, they are bringing something of value to the other person.
Right. I love what you said there too about this, this thing about responsibility and how other people are not responsible for us or our feelings. So yeah, taking some self-responsibility and saying, okay, I see that I'm hurt still from XYZ relationship that just happened. And that requires healing before really getting into anything else.
When I was young, in my 20s and 30s, after I would be in a relationship that had just come out of a relationship that ended badly, I always thought it was the getting on the horse that threw you right away philosophy of life that worked for dating too. So I'd immediately start dating again. And then I met this amazing woman. She was beautiful and she was so smart. And we talked for about 5 minutes and she looked at me and she said, how long has it been since your relationship ended?
Oh, wow.
I always tell the truth. And I said, well, a couple of weeks. And she just looked at me and she smiled. Said, call me in a year. And she was right. And I learned a lesson that day that I have to be healed. I have to be whole. It has nothing to do with anyone else.
Yeah.
So
did you end up calling her? Or?
No, it was, a year later, God, at that age.
You moved on, yeah.
Yeah. But I actually thanked her. As painful and embarrassing as it was, I thanked her.
That's awesome. And wow, how intuitive for her to understand that within 5 minutes of talking to you.
Well, I think it had something to do with that I was having a difficult time making eye contact. That's a big giveaway. When people can't make eye contact, there's usually something wrong.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I remember actually one of my own experiences where I went out on several dates with this one guy who was very nice, but I could tell that he was not over his last relationship, which I think lasted 6 years or something. And I think we went out on something like 5 dates and he didn't once try to kiss me or anything. And I just thought, what's going on there? But I kind of knew, I'm like, he's not really over he wouldn't talk about it. He didn't really talk about it, but eye contact thing was there. And I thought, So it's interesting for sure. Eye contact is big. So healing is key. And additionally, and when people are, getting back out there, oftentimes they are online. that's a big thing today.
Yeah.
I think most people are online dating, and it can be a really successful way to meet someone great. Assuming you've got like a great profile, and you're really putting yourself out there in the best way. So what are some of the really best ways that women can put their best foot forward in their online dating profile?
Good question. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of online dating because it works. Yeah, it's trying and sometimes feels like you're swimming through molasses. It bogs you down, and it can make you angry, frustrated. I mean, it can be really awful.
Yeah.
But if you persevere, if you have stamina and you maintain a positive attitude, and sometimes you have to walk away for a week or so to get your head back together again, it does work. And I think there's two aspects of posting profiles that I work with on my clients' behalf. The first is photos. I'm still amazed how many men and women post photos of, kind of like,
Are they like, they won't look at the camera? They're like,
did your dog just die? Or, they look like their dog or their best friend just died. And the other thing is sunglasses, hats, arty shots and shadows, group shots. I mean, you have to avoid all of those. And I tell my clients, if there's nothing else you're going to remember from what I'm telling you, just remember this: smile. Because everyone who smiles is attractive. I really believe that, because I don't think attractive is just having, perfect features. A smile goes a long way. And you could just have a friend shoot some pictures. I don't suggest anyone get professional photos. They look staged, they look fake, and they're probably airbrushed. And we're all older now, and we expect some wrinkles and lines, so it's not a disappointment. What is a disappointment is if you meet somebody who doesn't resemble their photo in the least. And I've had that experience too. And I think the classic story is a friend of mine's actually a therapist, and had a date with a fellow she met on Match.com. And she got there early. It was a cafe. She was waiting, and all of a sudden she saw a shadow over her, and she looked. Now, the guy's photo had been maybe somebody in mid-40s, long brown hair, in great shape, just smiling, just looked like a real great potential date. The guy who was standing above her was in his late 50s. He was completely bald. He was terribly overweight. And she said, "Who are you?" And he said his name, and she said, "How can you be that guy? How old was that photo? I mean, why did you do that? Why did you use such an old photo?" And I think she asked because she was a therapist and because she was angry.
Annoyed, yeah.
And he said, it was kind of the classic, "Well, I really love that old photo of myself." I think, okay.
Yeah, well,
She didn't. So if your photo's older than a year old, get a new one. And I think the only thing worse than posting an old photo is posting no photo, hoping that Mr. Wonderful is just going to be able to conjure up that you're the woman of his dreams, even though he has no idea what you look like. And I think, face shots are good, head shots are good, but I think there should be at least one full-length photo because people have a right to see what you look like. There's no point in surprises. So that's the important thing. The second thing is to write a profile, and I do this for my clients, but if you're doing your own, write a profile that's creative, that's energetic, that's different. Don't talk about liking to, loving to drink a glass of wine by the fireplace in the winter or walking on the beach. Duh, who doesn't? Write about, and instead of mentioning every place you've ever visited, which can sound pretentious, pick a favorite and write about it like it's a little movie script. And I wrote mine about Paris because it's my favorite city outside of San Francisco where I live. And I just described in a brief script for a film, walking arm in arm with my sweetie along the banks of the Seine and the left bank on the way to the Musée d'Orsay, the Impressionist Museum, spending a couple hours at the museum, kind of holding each other, whispering in each other's ears, looking at the beautiful works of Monet and Renoir and Degas. And then a late afternoon lunch at an outdoor cafe, a walk back to the hotel, make love, wake up, go out for drinks, and have dinner in a small, quiet, candlelit neighborhood restaurant. Well, I don't know what other people think, but I can tell you that it was a huge success. Women who appreciated what I had to say about Paris or who shared my feelings about it just flooded my inbox. And one of the women who appreciated my short script was my sweetheart, who I met online 4 years ago. And, awesome. She said she read it and just laughed because she has the same fantasy. So you want to create a fantasy, create something exciting, something somebody can look forward to sharing with you. Everything should be in terms of sharing. If you just say what you're excited about in life, what gets you, really going, that's not enough. What you need to be saying is, I love 100-mile bicycle rides, and boys, that's something I'd like to share with the right guy. Or, London is a place I've visited, going to the theater. Would love to share that with the right guy. So make everything about sharing. Very important. And leave out the trite. Leave out the stuff that everyone says, because everyone says it. Yeah.
We've all seen it. Yeah, I love what you said there, because there's different ways of sharing information. I feel like there's definitely a time and a place to be straightforward, and there's definitely a time and a place to be poetic. Mm-hmm. And I love, the idea of a storytelling and a dating profile, because it really pulls people in. I think it's really seductive when you get, details, and people can really envision what you're saying, what the experience of a date would be like. And so I love that. I think that is a great strategy for an online profile.
Thank you. Yeah, I can say that it's always worked for my clients. Most of my clients report that the guys they contact always say, God, what a great profile you had. Well, I just smile when I hear that.
You're like, yep.
Yeah, really. Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of online dating, so what are some, in addition to, the story and all of that, what are some key things to, I guess, including key things maybe to avoid seeing in your profile?
Good question. I think I tell my clients to be proactive dating online, not reactive. And that means just delete your inbox every day. Just forget about the guys who are contacting you, because half of them spammed you. They did a cut and paste and sent it to 30 women, none of whose profiles they read. And the other half are probably people you're not interested in meeting. If you're really concise about what you're looking for, and I'll explain, if you like, how to know what you're looking for, but you should be proactive. You pick the guys. Don't let them pick you. You do the choosing. And and if, in the end, women always tell me, well, there aren't that many good guys left. And I think, no, there are.
There's
plenty of good guys left, but you just have to know how to recognize them. And if you're just shooting in the dark or throwing darts, you're not going to recognize them. So I always tell my clients, make a list of 4 to 6 best qualities that describe you, whatever those words are. And when you read men's profiles, look for those words. If it's not the same word, at least the same meaning. Look for somebody who shares your core values and beliefs. If you're one of those people who thinks that you can work anything out in a relationship, well, that may be true down the road, but you don't want to begin a relationship by having to get past the fact that somebody's political views are 180 degrees different than yours, or you're an atheist, they're very religious. The whole notion of opposites attracting has been debunked over and over and over, and yet I still hear people still write to me, say, well, my husband's totally different than me, and I think, yeah, sure, okay, whatever you say, lady. I mean, and I'm sure you have wonderful conversations about the differences too. No, you want to find somebody who's just like you.
Yeah.
As much as possible, and certainly someone who shares your values. So you do the choosing. Women should do all of their own choosing. And it's hard for my clients to just delete their inboxes. They
Mm.
tell me it's really hard. And I think, no, think of it as a waste of time.
Yeah.
Going through your inbox, it's just a waste of time. And all that time wasted, you could be cruising online and finding just what you're looking for. So I think that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So another question, I guess, pertaining to online dating is, the question I often get is, well, should I meet him there? Because there's this whole, it's essentially a blind date. I mean, you've seen pictures of this person in
Oh,
theory, right?
Yeah,
They look like who they are, and a description of who they are as well. But they, there's also this, I don't know this person super well. I mean, if you're lucky and you're on like one of those dating sites that lets you see a mutual friend, that's a plus. But sometimes you're meeting people totally in the dark, like with Match and eHarmony. Sometimes there's no like way to know if you have a mutual friend. And so you're meeting someone you don't know. So oftentimes the question is, do I let him pick me up? Do I meet him? How soon or, how long should I wait to be intimate with this person? All of that. So I'd be curious to know your thoughts on those issues, because it is a different ballgame than it used to be.
Yeah. I get pretty serious with my clients about a first date always being a coffee date.
Mm-hmm.
You meet somebody at a busy cafe. The truth is, the noisier it is, the better, because all that noise drowns out your conversation. And it's the right place to meet for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that if it's a terrible date, you can say, thanks for meeting me, and get up and leave. But I think the worst that can happen is that you'll have a wonderful time and wish you'd had more time. Okay, well, that's great. Then you have another date. But the idea that because I have a list of 6 questions that women over 50, especially my clients, should always ask a guy on or before a first date. You're not going to ask those hard questions in a romantic restaurant by candlelight with somebody you don't know. You're just going to think, well, you're going to go. Guys love the idea of falling in love. That's a guy thing, especially older guys. They love the idea of whining and dining, but it's stupid because they're wasting their time too. A first date especially, is an interview. And, you wouldn't take a job because somebody sent you a letter, gee, we'd like to have you. You shouldn't accept, you shouldn't accept a date any place except coffee either. And it's for safety reasons too. So, but I think mostly after 10 minutes, if you're not enjoying it or you don't see it happening, you say, gee, I really appreciate meeting you, and you're a real nice guy, but I don't see this happening for us, and put your money down for the coffee and leave. Yeah. So always coffee, not in a bar, because that's a whole different conversation. When it's fueled by alcohol, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And sex shouldn't come up in the conversation, except to the extent I was always surprised. Several women asked me when I was dating, and I'd meet for coffee, and they'd ask me if I was still sexual. And I was so surprised, and I thought, does that mean they want to have sex with me now? What is this? I said, why do you ask? And they said, because lots of guys your age aren't.
Huh.
And I want to make sure. I think, okay, fair enough. So if you're a woman and you're still sexual and you want to make sure the guy is too, it's okay to ask, but that's about as far as that conversation should go. And the second date can be a restaurant if you want. It could be a walk. It could be a hike. It could be an art museum. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I really tell my clients, avoid romantic dinners for a while. You really have a feeling that this guy has what you're looking for, has the qualities and the only way you're going to know that is by asking the right questions. The first question I tell women to ask men, I've worked with men for 30 years in groups, so I think I understand men pretty well, beside my own psychotherapy that I did for years ago. And the first question a woman should ask a man is, do you have any men friends? And the significance of that is it's a couple things. One, is a guy who doesn't have men friends, probably has trust issues,
Mm-hmm.
because at our age, over 50, if you don't have any friends, something's not right.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, the other aspect of it is if a guy has no friends, you're going to be his entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to be somebody's entire
Attachment.
universe?
Yeah.
No, because couples need time separate. My partner and I have a life together, but we have separate lives. She has her friends. She has things she's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that people have a life together and a life separately that they can bring together. But stay away from guys who have no friends. It's a bad sign.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something that you said a few minutes ago about, if you're on a coffee date, which I agree with for the first date, by the way, if you're not enjoying it, get up and leave, say thank you. And because this is your time, and the same thing with the questions. I think a lot of women are afraid to ask important questions on the first, second, and third dates because they think it's going to be too invasive or something. But I mean, this is important information, right?
Well, I think offensive. A lot of women are worried that a guy would take off. And what I always tell them, because I used to ask women the same questions, the only thing I tell them is if they're offended, it's probably because they can't answer it satisfactorily. And so if they get upset or angry, why would you want to know a guy like that in the first place?
Yeah.
You don't want to know a guy who gets angry or upset because you ask him a reasonable question. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain. There's and the way to ask those questions, and I always advise my clients, don't just say, well, do you have any friends? Talk about talk about your own friendships. My friends are really important to me. Here's why they're important. Here's how long I've known them. How about you? And then all of a sudden, you're not just sticking it on some guy. And the other question, I think, is there's a half a dozen, but the other one that's really important is what kind of personal growth work have you done? If a guy's 50 to 80 and lived through probably the most prolific self-help, self-improvement time in history, and he's completely ignored it, that's not a good sign. And so I always, one of my clients asked, asked a date, what was your personal growth path? And he said, well, my life experiences have provided me with growth. And I think, no, personal experiences give you experiences, but they don't go inside you and make you a better human being, a more conscious human being, somebody who's in touch with his feelings. So that's not true. So, and it doesn't have to be psychotherapy. It can be, or individual therapy or group therapy. It can be a book you read, or a magazine article, or a TV show, or a documentary, or a workshop. There's a lot of different things you can do. But if a guy's ignored all of this completely, all of these years, I'd say that's not a good sign. Because every relationship problem needs to be resolved, and they don't get resolved when one person says, well, here's how I'm feeling, and the other one responds with, well, I think, it becomes, you can't have that conversation about I feel versus I think. Either both people are going to explain how they feel, and it's okay to be angry. Hey, I'm angry, and here's how why I'm feeling angry. That's okay, as long as it's calm and explains your situation. So I think emotional skills and emotional IQ, very important. And again, women say, wow, there's no guys like, there's a lot of guys like that.
There's plenty.
Yeah, believe me, there's a lot of guys like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because it boils down to really get to know someone before, you invest, right?
Exactly.
On a deeper level.
Yeah, before you invest your heart, because that is a big investment. And, people who are 50 to 70 or more, how many rocket rides do you want to take? In every rocket ride, it's about sex, it's about infatuation, it's about fantasy, and the rockets take off. And in fact, the talk I'm going to give to the women at this conference, these Russian women that they can relate to, is that I was the Yuri Gagarin Relationships, because I rode lots of rockets. At some point you have to say to yourself, God, haven't I ridden enough of these? And if you can refrain from becoming sexual until you know there's a reason to, there's the potential for a relationship, you'll be much happier. You don't have to crash and burn, with 10 guys in a row. After 50. It's most women seem to get it, because a lot of women tell me they'd rather spend Friday night with Ben and Jerry's and Netflix than a guy with no potential.
There's always a time and place for that, single or not.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love what you said there. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Getting to know someone. What was the next piece on that? Shoot, I'm sure it'll come back to me. Actually, I have another question, so I might interject.
Go ahead.
So what is some, advice or words of wisdom that you would give to those who aren't sure or having a hard time believing, that their guy is actually out there?
Well, first thing I tell my clients is never, ever settle. If your friends tell you you're just being too picky, thank them for the compliment.
Yeah.
Because you should be incredibly picky. The difference dating after 50 is you're not looking for a date. You're looking for a life partner. And a life partner is not a casual thing. So take your time. And don't be afraid. Don't second guess yourself. If you meet somebody and you walk away from that, if you ask the right questions and you walk away still not sure, they just weren't listening. You asked the right questions. What were the answers? Is it because you thought the guy was handsome and he had money, he had power, but he didn't answer them well, so you're trying to determine whether all of those things make up for the things the negatives? No, they don't. Nothing makes up for somebody who's unconscious. Nothing. So be resolute. And be patient, but be picky. Be incredibly picky.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Never settle. I think, and I actually just remembered my thought. Yes.
Okay.
I think a lot of people get really thrown off by this illusion of chemistry, and then they forget that it's really important to share core values with another person. And they think, well, I can have the chemistry, but can I not have it all? No, you can have it all. Like you said, never settle. You can have someone that you have good chemistry with, either whether it happens on the first date, the 5th date, or the 15th date. But the most important thing is to have, values that mesh before anything else, I think.
I agree. And I think the biggest mistake what people can have is to have sex too soon, because as soon as the relationship becomes sexual, the getting to know you aspect of the relationship comes to a screeching halt.
Yep.
So then you get what I call an unconscious entanglement, which maybe it's going to last 6 months, and then one day you wake up and you look at this person and you think, God, I don't even like this guy. This guy his philosophy of life is obnoxious or whatever. Well, you have no one to blame but yourself. So the getting to know you process can actually be fun. Maybe a little frustrating at times, but it can be fun. When my partner and I met 4 years ago, there was some obvious chemistry. We both felt it, and we both knew better than to act on it. And we dated for a while before we became sexual, because we both wanted to feel comfortable that this was someone we felt we had a real future with. So yeah, important.
And so what made you decide to stay with her? What was so amazing about your partner that you just said, yes, she's it?
Well, it's interesting because I've written about this in my book extensively, and that's typecasting. We all tend to date the same person with different names over and over and over. For me, it was short, blondes, kind of curvy, little noses, ski jump noses. That was my type. And my partner is tall, thin, has brown curly hair and actually a very large nose. And when I met her, I looked at her because I thought maybe it's time to change my type. And when I met her, I was really surprised. And then I discovered that she was surprised because her type was big guys. I'm not a big guy. It was big guys, and her list went on. I wasn't her type either. And yet we look at each other now, or even shortly after, and we both thought we were, the other person was incredibly attractive. So get out of your type box.
Yeah.
Get out of your, the only time typecasting works is in the movies. You know, people, there's always a guy that plays the bad guys, and there's always a woman who plays whatever. You know, get that out of your head and start seeing people. Look at the photos, of course, but take time to read about this person, because there may be a lot more there than the photo even let you know. So, yeah, stop. Yeah.
Yeah, typecasting, personality-wise, look-wise. I mean, there's a lot of people who they always say, "Oh, this is my type, and I gotta have, you know, da, da, da," and they marry someone, or you know, end up with someone that's completely different than they thought.
I had a client who wanted me to help her pick guys because she was unsure in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I picked a half a dozen guys that I thought she should contact that looked like good prospects, to me at least, looked like good prospects. And she looked at each one and told me whether or not she could have sex with them. And I said, wait a minute, are you planning on having sex with someone as soon as you meet them? Because if you are, then you don't need me. You know, you don't need a date coach. You need a therapist. You know, but you don't need me, because that's not even how I think you should approach dating. I don't think casual sex after 50 is such a great idea. And for men in particular, it can be problematic. It can be physically problematic. The one thing I always tell men is you can enhance your sexual potency enormously by having an emotional connection, by connecting your heart with your sex. You know, if you can't connect heart and sex, then you're really just skimming the surface, and probably it's not going to be very good.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think a lot of women are. Sex and emotions are directly linked, and they're always directly linked. And for men, they don't have to be. But like you just said, I mean, emotions really impact everything. So
well, and when I started asking the women who asked me about why men weren't sexual anymore, because she said a lot of guys your age aren't. I assume a lot of guys is a fair number. And I asked her why she thought that was. And she said because they don't have any sense of their feelings. Okay.
That was what she was really asking, yeah.
Because if your body, as you age, your body starts failing you, and you don't know what to do about it except to take Viagra, and that's not really the solution. You know, that can enhance your sex life, but it's not going to cure sexual dysfunctions necessarily. Men need to learn how to invest their heart, to speak from their hearts. Yeah. Instead of saying, hey, I think you're really wrong about this, to say, here's why I'm feeling, you know, this isn't working for me. And explain, because I'm feeling sad, and here's why I'm feeling sad. Whatever it is, you got to be able to articulate it.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you said about, you know, date guys who've done the personal development work, who are in touch with their feelings. And this is another reason why that's so important.
I think so. And also a guy with men friends, real men friends, talks with them about his issues.
Yeah.
You know, not unusual. So take advantage of I mean, I've had some of the same men friends for over 30 years. And when we talk, you know, we talk about the Giants and the Niners for a couple of minutes. Mostly though, we talk about our relationships, what's working, what's not working. You know, what do you think? And, you know, we always help each other. That's what friends are for.
Yeah.
That's what friends are for. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is probably a great segment to wrap up on. So thanks again so much for joining me on this, Ken. I really appreciate it. And everyone, please make sure to check out Ken's link below. Ken, do you want to check? KenSolin.com. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.